Welcome to episode 28 of the Creative Train podcast. This is one for the educators, the teachers out there. In the last episode, I talked about how do artists respond to this AI revolution. Well, teachers are feeling that same kind of ominous stare coming at them, where the opportunities for people to educate themselves with different apps and AI learning platforms is huge, and it's growing by the minute, it seems. So what do you do as a teacher who's passionate about teaching? How do you keep your students engaged? One of the things that I've found is I have to learn how to work with that tech. I have to come to understand it a bit myself. We're going to talk about that next. All aboard? So here's a question for the teachers, the educators. You know, those who show people how to do stuff and get paid for it. Have you ever felt threatened by these advancing technologies? Like, do you ever feel like your role as a teacher could be made redundant by an app on a phone? This is one that goes beyond the advancements in AI technologies that I discussed in the previous episode called AI, Therefore I Am, in which I outlined my own experiences and that of some of my creative partners who are actually losing jobs and watching their careers kind of fizzle away as a large number of clients and other folks seem to find satisfactory results in AI-rendered, air quotes, art and music. In the last episode, I encouraged artists to keep creating, to offer something so unique that genuinely caring customers simply cannot accept an AI alternative for. But what of the teachers and educators in things like the creative arts? Have you found your enrollment has gone down over the last few years? And you're scratching your head wondering what you've done wrong? Has it led you to doubt your effectiveness as an educator, or made you start looking for more like a real job? I know that I have certainly had those moments, but I want to offer you, the educator, some of what I have found has helped me pivot in my role, sometimes slightly and sometimes significantly. But this pivot has allowed me to re-engage with new students who seem to have become overly enamored with these apps and animated tutorials over actual in-person lessons. Now, this isn't going to be me just sitting here complaining about technology. I understand that there is also an affordability factor when it comes to taking private lessons, and that some of these apps offer a great deal of benefit to some. This is about how I had to change part of my role as a private music instructor to work with these apps. When online forums started becoming popular, I had a lot of music students tell me about how they got, quote, free lessons on how to play songs by using text-based tabs. Now, if you're not sure what tabs are, this is a guitar thing. It's an abbreviation of the word called tablature, and it's a numerical system for describing which notes to play on a guitar, in which the lines of a 6-line music staff are used to represent the strings of the guitar, and numbers are put on those lines telling you which fret to play on which string. Do you remember learning recorder back in grade school, and they showed you pictures with black dots over the holes you were to cover? Yeah, it's kind of like that, but for guitar. Without going into too many gory details about those tab websites, basically it shows you where to put your fingers sequentially, but there is no means or method of mentioning timing, note names, chord names, harmonies, anything, just where to put your fingers. It works, but only if you already know how the piece should sound and goes in order to interpret the tab properly. Anyway, dozens of these sites started popping up, and the flood of these free guitar tabs was amazing. However, there was nobody editing these things that users would post. Nobody removed any of the incorrect versions, and as a result, these sites would have upwards of 100 versions of a song, and it was up to the user to filter through them until they got something that seemed to sound more or less correct. Students would innocently and eagerly print dozens and dozens of pages of often completely incorrect transcriptions and bring them to me to have me fix them. And I ended up saying to people after a while, don't print anything for your lessons. We'll work through it together properly. And this was not me gatekeeping. This was saving a huge amount of time in sessions where I'd have to be editing these dreadful interpretations. And honestly, it often was and often is still easier to start fresh with each new tune. When YouTube first started becoming a thing in 2005, I remembered a few students who said they started a song from a tutorial they watched. And I was really curious. And I was a rather late adapter of phone-based apps until the iPhone 3G in 2008. A lot of what I found in music tutorials was actually amazing, and some was shockingly awful. So fast forward 20 years now, and most music students who are either engaged in private lessons or choose to study on their own have pretty much figured out what works and what doesn't as far as these online things goes. And most students have phones and easy access to web-based tutorials and apps. Those old tab sites are now largely relegated to the junk heap of internet nostalgia, and the YouTubers doing those tutorials have really picked up their game, either through creative cannibalism of other people's works or by actually educating themselves before posting their videos. And that leaves myself and many others, again, in another situation where we're feeling replaceable. This big pivot I was referring to in the title is how my role in my daily experience has changed from transcribing by hand with notes and tab to working with a lot of these aforementioned apps in my studio with several students, and being able to focus more on the theory and technique involved in learning and executing these songs. And in these cases, I feel like I can actually do my job more efficiently, as the transcription stuff is already done, and it is eerily accurate. I'm not sure who or what does the transcriptions or how these apps are made, but in the last 2 years, I haven't found any errors in any of the songs I've been tasked with teaching. So as we go along in these songs, I can pose the timely questions or make technical suggestions that make the student think about what's going on. Too often, it's just a matter of the put your finger here, then put your finger there, then pick this string and strum that chord kind of thing. And that's an okay way to start if you know what's going on musically. But if you don't know things like the key of the song or the names of the notes and the chords you're playing, you're not really learning anything musical. You're becoming a parrot, which can only recite things that it has heard before. Have you ever tried to have a meaningful conversation with a parrot? Let me know how that works out. So I'd say it's probably about 25% of my music students use these apps. Some folks are not into tech, and others are too young to really understand how to make use of the apps without getting distracted. But for those that get it, and this is the age group that's like, I'd say 13 to 50s, your mid-50s. Some older folks like them, but most don't. Once you learn how to use them, you can really excel. And that's where I find that my pivot has happened, where I can fill them in on the boring details as we go through the already created transcriptions and moving along in real time as we read along. So I've pivoted into working with the tech, not fighting against it. So what if you're a teacher or an educator in another discipline? Maybe you're a grade school teacher, or you offer private lessons in other things like arts and crafts, dance, martial arts, theater, makeup application. The list goes on, and I think you already know that your students are using, how do we call it, YouTube University already to enhance their skills and gain new perspectives. Maybe they're using one or more of the several AI programs to learn from in conjunction with your lessons. Do you know what the students are using this tech for? Do you know what the most popular searches are made by your students' age and demographics? Do you know how to use these programs and apps yourself? Do you know what any of them are called and where to find them? It's inevitable. It really is. People will either be repelled or drawn to new tech that can offer them what seems like an easier path to gaining knowledge and experience. To try and change that now would be exactly that analogy of trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube. Yep, that's not going to happen. As educators, we have to be open to new tech, new methods, new information, and especially new ways and new opportunities to engage with and retain our students. Rather than flip the middle finger to any and all tech that seems to be encroaching on your gig, look into it, not even all of it, but look into it as a service to yourself and your career, but above all, to your students. They already look to you for guidance. That's why they're with you. They look to you for guidance, information, inspiration, and so much more. If you can help guide them through learning to work with the new tech in their creative journey, they will appreciate you even more. Just as I said to the artists and creators in the previous episode, you can do something that AI will never be able to do, and that is to generate a completely new idea. As a teacher, one of the biggest things you can offer is your insights gained from many years of hands-on and minds-on study. To be able to inform your students about how these technologies are changing things by giving them an understanding of what the process and means and methods used to be like. Yeah, give them one of those back in the day moments to consider. Involve yourself with some of this new tech. Try to understand it, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and let your students know. Let them know that you know. Show them and tell them how you see these things working and how they might be improved or even make better the whole process. You've already been doing the thing for much longer than they have. Be the voice that can guide and inform. Be the embodiment of inspiration and practicality, and always keep your passion for sharing your knowledge and experience. If you can do these things, your students will see and feel the difference that having a passionate teacher makes. And that is something that an app or an AI just cannot and will not ever be able to do. There's your pep talk. Now go get to work. Yep, just when this could have been one of those old man shaking his fist at the cloud episodes, it had a bright and happy ending. You have to learn to keep engaged in educating yourself. Because you're an educator or a teacher, you know you're never done learning. But I think sometimes when we see something coming that we don't quite feel comfortable with, it's really easy to dismiss it and just pretend that it doesn't exist in your life. But it exists in the lives of your students, right? So you have to start to understand some of these things about how to work with the tech and let it be your friend, but offer things that the tech can't offer.